We are recording
Meep.
very slowly. We are live. And as always, I forgot to change the topics before we started.
What the heck? Yeah, we're not talking about any of those things. Are zoos okay? We could maybe talk about that. Explaining.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to T3G. This is the Tangents Podcast. If you don't know, Google that shit. This is a new segment that we're calling Explaining Comics to My Wife. Possibly to other people, but right now it's going to be to my wife.
Mostly to me.
And this is my wife, Ericka, also known as Hot Dish and...
Fit and Fluffy.
Fit and Fluffy on the social medias.
Fit and Fluffy
all
blog.
of the social medias. And,
Sorry, I didn't clear my throat.
it's part of the process. Part of the process. Dude, I've got to fix this. Hold on. I don't know. I always... Not gonna let me do that, are you? Nope. I'd have to start it over. That's fine. We're just going to extend this over.
Oh.
There it is. Fixed.
Oh, man.
I wanted to just kind of, I don't know. I was trying to figure out, honestly, for like the last 3 days, I was like, what should we talk about? Like and ironically, I've been listening to Explained X-Men, and they were doing an episode where they crossed over with other podcasts, and it was fucking hilarious. And they were all like explaining different stuff from different like Avengers and DC and X-Men. They were all explaining different stuff to each other. And I was like, man, like it's like some like I could do that, I could do, and I was just like, I didn't have anything specific. So like, what do you want to learn?
I honestly, when I envisioned how this was going to go, I thought you were going to have a prepared statement for me, and then you were just going to like talk at me and teach me, because I don't know anything.
I mean,
I really don't. Like, I mean, most comic knowledge that I have, which is almost none, I got from the movies, and I have a short attention span. So, like, you're asking me about movies all the time, and I go, did I even see that movie? Because it seems like I wasn't present for it.
We were just talking about something like that recently, where I was like, do you remember this part in Avengers? And you were like, no.
No. Like, Avengers was not my favorite. The more recent
the first one?
one.
There's my Endgame.
Yeah, the first. Was it the first one? Did
Which
that
one?
have the like flying caterpillars from hell or whatever?
Yeah.
The dimensional caterpillars.
Yeah, the aliens, the Chitauri.
Yeah, I remember like nothing of that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
It had some like the
and
best.
I saw that movie like it was probably 3 hours, so I gave 3 hours of my life for nothing because I don't remember it.
And it's. I mean, it had some like classic moments. It had, Hulk smashing Loki.
Like, I'm sure if I saw it again, I'd be like, oh, I totally remember this. But if you asked me, like, can you explain, what was the first one called? Was it just Avengers?
It was just Avengers, yeah.
Yeah, if you asked me to explain it to you, I'd be like, so the team got together, and they were mostly successful.
Not incorrect. That's a fairly accurate assessment of the movie entirely.
Yep.
I mean, a bunch of other stuff. Like, do you, man?
Don't remember anything else. Like, if you ask me, like,
who was the bad guy? I literally just said it.
Loki.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like he's like a chaotic good. I don't know.
Nah, he's not chaotic neutral at best.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or no, he's not chaotic good. Yeah, maybe
he's
neutral.
Chaotic neutral for sure.
He has his moments, but they are to serve him in the end.
Yeah, but what's funny is, and even in the comics, and I mean, after like, what is it now, 60, 70, 80 years actually. After 80 years, a lot of it is really just like daddy issues. Oh. It's just like, it's all been him.
That was my dad's problem with that movie, is he was like, this movie, like, what was even the point of this? It was just this kid who was mad that his like dad who rescued him, granted because he killed his people, loved him too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it was. I mean, why?
Yeah.
There was no point.
Because he could never be king, and he never felt acknowledged, and he wasn't the favorite.
But wasn't he the youngest? Was he considered the youngest, or was Thor?
I think he is his little brother. So yeah.
Well, so then he wouldn't be the first in line anyway. So shut the fuck up.
Right. I mean, that's true. You're not wrong. But like, I mean, I don't know. I'm an only child. You're an only child.
Yes.
We have no point of reference for this.
True.
Like, just like not. We have no way to figure out what that like. Even what any position like. Oh, technically, I have younger sisters now, but like, I've never lived with them. It was never
Right.
like vying for affection. None of that happened
Yeah.
for me. So like.
And I
say
guess like
technically.
my mom would argue that her sister was the favorite and her sister is older.
Right.
But my dad was the youngest and he was maybe arguably the favorite, but he was also the only boy.
Right.
So.
Right. And then male dominant society, the boys are always.
Right. So, yeah, I don't know. But that's not X-Men.
No,
And
I
that's
mean, it's
what I
anything.
had questions about.
What did you have
for the
questions
most
about? Georgia,
part,
go lay down.
About this dumb dog.
Yeah, seriously, go lay down.
So my understanding is that all of the movies that have come out so far are tied together one way or another.
Yes.
For X-Men.
Yes.
Except for it sounds like, and I've never seen it, that they are trying their best to forget that Wolverine went back in time, or the movie went back in time to see him when he was in
The Origins movie.
Where was it, Vietnam, or was it even farther back than that?
It was a lot of things.
It was a lot of
It was a
things.
whole. I mean, like it started in colonial Canada.
I never saw it, so I've heard I don't need to see it.
Here's what it did. It took. I might ruffle feathers with this one, but it took potentially the greatest Wolverine storyline
Oh no.
of all time, which was Wolverine Origins. It was literally something they never said they would do. Joe Quesada, who was in comics from like the 90s and before.
Wait. But no. There were two Wolverine movies.
Yeah,
though.
the Wolverine was great.
I saw the Wolverine is the more recent one.
Yeah, with the ninjas.
I saw that one.
Yeah.
I did see that one. I'm talking about the other
that
one.
adapts a few things from a couple different other comics that are also very, very much loved. But the Wolverine Origins was something they swore they wouldn't do. Joe Quesada took over at Marvel in 2000. He was the editor-in-chief, and people were like, "Oh, are you ever gonna reveal Wolverine's origin?" And he's like, "The whole point of Wolverine is that he's a mystery. You'd have to be literally, this is a quote. You'd have to be an idiot to do that." And then like a year and a half later, they did it. So I always thought that was funny.
I guess from everything I saw, I never felt that you needed an origin. But I suppose if you
You
started
don't.
with a comic from the movies, again, my standpoint is clear just from
Sure,
the movies.
but even from the movies,
But like
you
even
don't.
from the movies,
He's a mystery dude.
I mean, he's a mystery dude, but like you know what like led him to get to what he is, and I don't.
To the
And I
X-Men,
never
yeah.
felt. And other than that, I either felt that he was like just some random dude who they happened upon, and then they did it, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Or that. I don't know, maybe he had qualities that would make you want to use him, but that it wasn't crucial to who he was.
What's up, Uncle Peter? Thanks for stopping by, man.
So I never felt that I needed to know his origin, personally.
That's fair. I mean, and like most people didn't, honestly. I don't. Besides, like the diehards that just they want more and more and more. There wasn't like a huge clamor like, what is the origin? And I think, and more so, I think people wanted kind of like his early years as a mutant.
Oh, okay.
Because there was
True.
throughout the history of Wolverine, there was always callbacks like, oh, was he in World War II? Was he in like was he in the Revolutionary War? What? Not in the Revolutionary. I think they said Civil War.
See?
Like there were little things that there was always a callback, and people would be like, how old is he? And like there were a lot of questions, but that just added to the air of mystery.
I keep forgetting also that he is a mutant, that he was, because
Yes.
it felt very much like he was created, and it wasn't that he was created. They took things that he already had and built on them.
Correct.
I forget that. So I guess it is interesting, because otherwise I just figured it was more interesting in the like finding out what he didn't know versus if you had found out that he was amazing or something. It was just that mystery of like he has lost his memory or had his memory erased, and that he has to like relearn it. I thought the journey was more interesting than necessarily the actual backstory. That maybe potentially he could have just been like, I was a mutant, just living my life like anybody else's life,
Sure.
and then some shit happened to me.
Right. Well, and that's I think that's what kind of was the original story. Originally, the claws were added. Like they were like,
Yeah.
we're gonna give you claws now, and that was the original in the comics. I mean,
So he started out with claws when
yeah,
they made him?
originally his claws came out of his gauntlets.
Okay.
They hadn't even made the decision that they were in his arms yet. So, like, because I think the first 3, maybe even up to 5 appearances, he has his gloves on.
Oh, okay.
So people just assumed they came out of the gloves.
I also lied because I did watch the comic that was on TV, but I didn't watch it like religiously.
You mean the TV series?
The TV series.
Yeah, the animated series from like the 90s?
Yeah, but I maybe saw like 5 episodes repeated constantly.
Sure. So like that yellow costume,
Yeah.
those gloves, he had them on all the time.
Right.
So people just assumed that they were part of his gloves until one issue where like 2 great things happen at the same time, where they're being kidnapped by Sentinels and Jean is in like this little mini dress because they were just out on the town, and he pops his claws for the first time out of suit, and they're like, and everyone's kind of like, whoa. I mean, like, they don't react because, you know, he knows that they're part of him.
Right.
But, I mean, as a reader, it was like, oh,
I don't
wow.
know what to do with my arms.
I mean, put him somewhere. Just dance, yeah. But she's like, I can't run in this. And he's just like, just shears off the bottom part of her dress or skirt or whatever. And that's like, that. I don't know if that's the beginning, but that is in the long line of X-Men getting their, female X-Men getting
their clothes ripped off.
Ripped off. For various reasons. Just
because plot device.
And it wasn't even that bad. It's like, it's honestly not even that bad of a moment. Like, it's not like she goes like up to her butt. It's just, it goes from like knee length to hip length.
Yeah.
It's not, honestly, I don't even know why she.
We've seen that in other shows and movies.
I don't even know why she couldn't run to begin with. Like, it wasn't like a, let me rephrase myself. It wasn't a mini skirt, like where it was like tight to the body. It was, like, it was open at the bottom. So I was like, what prevents her from running exactly? But
this is how I felt about Resident Evil, the first movie, which she starts off with this like evening dress, and then it just progressively gets shorter and shorter for like no fucking reason. And I don't even think that they took a moment where she was just like, this is cumbersome, let me like make it shorter. It just, things kept like ripping her clothes off.
Right, but I mean, she was fighting zombies. It's a little different.
But
it's hard to control what they do.
It was still very.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, a big part of that was the
sexiness.
The sexiness. Yeah, I mean, it's Milla Jovovich. It's her. I mean, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah. So Wolverine, the big thing is in the big thing in the movie, and even somewhat in the comics. But the big thing in the movie was that you kind of went along with him through the journey, and God, to even give, you can lock it if you want.
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm falling. How? What do I do?
Lean forward.
I'm leaning forward.
And then push that in.
Push this in?
Yeah.
Where is it? Towards you or?
In.
In?
There you go.
Oh, shit. Hey.
There you go.
Yay.
But yeah, so a big part of it was that you went along with him. So like when he lost his memory, everything you just saw up until that point, he doesn't know going forward. There's no point at which he remembers. So like, you know, his origin, like Alberta, Canada, that's what I'm saying. Like they took this Wolverine origin story, which they said they would never do, but then they did, and it was really fucking good.
Right.
And it ended up being, it's in very many ways, it took a lot from The Secret Garden. Where you had like the movie, The Secret Garden, or the book, I guess, but like the movie, The Secret Garden, where like you had the rich kid who was like sheltered, and you had the girlfriend, but you also had the like Huck Finn kind of kid.
Okay, yeah.
Right. That all that basically happened, except there wasn't a garden. They were just like out hanging out, and he was like consistently frail and sickly, and it's just because his mutant powers were about to happen. So it was kind of funny that knowing that he was going to be Logan.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess technically in the comic you don't know he's going to be Logan, like Wolverine, until you find out the whole story.
Oh, okay.
So like at the beginning he's just this sickly
You're just
kid.
like, why am I learning this story about this Secret Garden kid?
Yeah, exactly. And so like all of that, which takes place, I think it's a 5-issue series, maybe even longer. And they condense that down into the first 10 minutes. And it has less impact, but you do have this moment where he's, 7, maybe 10 at most. and he pops his claws for the first time.
Right.
And it's this like "Wah!" moment, right? Which is kind of a repeat, which they did the same thing in the comic, but it was a repeat of the moment in 1993 when all of us, including Wolverine, found out that they were bone and they were not added because Magneto, due to a very long story, yanked out all of the metal in his body.
Okay.
Through his pores. He nearly dies.
Right.
Jean brings him back from death, continuing the love triangle bullshit. And he comes back, and then he's like, no, I'm still going to be a badass. I'm still going to fight. Right. And he's in a Danger Room training sequence, and he's fighting these robots, and just instinctively goes to pop claws.
But it's bone.
And they come out, but they're terrifying. Bone, and they tear through his skin. Because before they were sharp knives, they would, not that I'm suggesting anyone cut themselves, but like, if you cut yourself, it hurts.
As much as puncturing.
But it's not like tearing off something. And just like tearing through skin and like muscle from the inside. And you just hear like across like 2 pages, he's like yelling. And everyone's kind of like, oh shit, they're bone. And like everyone freaks out. He like goes into shock. Because it's the first time he's ever done it to his memory.
Because isn't it supposed to be like drawing a parallel to like puberty?
I mean, it is. The mutant powers mature at puberty.
Oh, okay.
If you're like living a generally comfortable life, it's probably not even going to happen for you. Because
isn't it usually brought on by like trauma?
In most situations, in most cases, it is trauma related.
Why aren't I a mutant?
But yeah, no, a lot like Jean, the first time you wouldn't want to be in this position. Her best friend was about to die, and she instinctively like reached to her, like tried to get to her to help her, and she got into her head as she's dying.
Oh,
and
no.
You can't be in someone's head as they die, so she like went into a coma.
Oh, okay.
Like.
I thought it was just. I mean, obviously, that's traumatic.
I think she only went into a coma, and this is kind of where retcons come into play. Have I explained retcons in the past?
It's when they like
retroactive continuity.
Damn it! You're not even letting me try.
Sorry.
Is it where you say like this never happened, or is it like alternate universe?
It's kind of the first kind of.
Okay.
It's more so like this always happened. You just didn't know yet. So like. As an example, if all of a sudden this screen was twice the size, and we would not know,
right?
Because it was always twice the size, because you just went back and said, "Oh, it was always twice the size." It's just kind of like going back and changing a piece of the details, not in a dramatic sense, but like little things. So, for instance, in some versions of the story, Xavier's like. Knew she was going to have powers. He's nearby, and he like helps her not die.
Right.
In others, she just instinctively pulls out. It like there's various tellings, but in most cases, she goes into a coma for a brief period, and then after he's already brought together Scott, Cyclops, Iceman, Beast, and Angel, she then shows up, and she's the girl.
Oh yeah.
Which was kind of the 60s.
And they all want her.
In all various fashions.
Because she is the one vagina.
That's kind of what it is. Yeah, I mean that was kind of the whole thing. The only time that wasn't true is the Fantastic Four, because the girl was the one dude's girlfriend, the one dude's sister, and the one dude was like her big brother.
Yeah.
So like that was always.
So in the. Because those are the first. Were there X-Men movies before the trilogy of X-Men that we know with like in the, what was it, late 90s, early 2000s? When did it come out?
Early 2000s. 2000 was the first one.
Okay.
There was not any X-Men movies before then.
So for me, that is, I guess, unfortunately, the gold standard. That is like what I judge everything else by, because that is what I was really introduced to it with outside of the cartoon.
Right.
So.
And that is a shame, because that is, man, that if to say that was like,
there we go, maybe.
I mean, that's about the least complex it gets.
Yeah.
So, if you don't want to dive deeper, you just don't have to.
Yeah.
The way, see, like when they did 3 and 3 finished, I was like, I've got the next 3 already figured out because I had it in a way that it made sense because they had to introduce all the characters that they did end up introducing, but just some in very shitty ways. Like Gambit came in Wolverine Origins, and he was pretty much the only like decent thing about it. And he's like Cajun and suave and he's a rascal and he's just a great character. Lie down. Lie down. Good girl. And so I was like, oh, what you do is you start the 4th movie and you say Gambit shows up to he's one of the, or he's just like on the campus because remember by 3 they had like a bunch of kids there. They had a bunch of students and stuff at the school, and like Storm was going to be headmistress now that Xavier was dead. And so my thought was, you have Sinister shows up, and he says, "Now," and basically one of the students turns out he's Gambit, pops out, steals whatever they need, and they duck. So that's the first time you see Gambit, and then right after that happens, Cable shows up and he's like, fucking Future's gonna be terrible, we gotta fix it. And that's the whole Scott Summers, Jean Grey kid thing, which is like really complex in the comics, but you could just say, because you open that with Sinister, who is just like genetics and manipulation and all sorts of things, you just say, oh, he cloned Jean before she died.
Okay.
So you stick with she died, but he cloned her, we move on. Because then you could just essentially ignore like the bad parts of, because I actually liked the 3rd movie, except for like the really shitty portrayal of Phoenix.
Right.
I really liked other parts of the movie and they were done really well. So you could just ignore the whole Dark Phoenix thing from that and just say Jean's back, but now she doesn't have her memories or whatever. And they still have a kid by the end of like the 5th movie or whatever. But there's just like, there was a way to do it. And then they were like, oh, we're gonna do First Class, and I was like, prequels.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
that's fun.
First one, I loved the first one. Second one, okay. Third one, I did not hate it as much as everybody else seemed to, but it was not my favorite either.
But then you never saw First Class.
I never saw First Class, and that's a problem. But then this is.
I yell at you because I was like, you don't even know why they're mad at each other.
They're always mad at each other.
That's not untrue.
Which is also like they came together as a team, and then they mostly won.
Right.
But, okay, so when they did Days of Future, or no. First Class was fully intended to be a prequel to the X-Men trilogy that we're familiar with, right?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Okay.
That was not meant to be like a reboot.
So was there an explanation then? Because in X-Men, it very much seemed like Mystique kind of came out of nowhere, just happened to be a mutant that Magneto found and was like using to his advantage. Not that there was any kind of history or anything like that. So and because I haven't seen First Class, I don't know what the lead up is to this or that. But like going forward in the prequels, they're calling her Raven, right?
That's her name.
So, her name is Raven?
Yeah, remember in, I think, was it the 2nd one or the 3rd one, where she gets captured, and the guy calls her Raven, and she's like, that's my slave name.
Oh, okay.
Like, that was just her name.
That's what people called her when they thought she was probably still human, and
no, that's just always been her name.
Oh.
That was just her name.
Okay.
Just like, Mystique is her persona.
Alter ego, I guess.
But like, so in First Class, as a kid, like 10, again, very young, I guess they'd have to be puberty, so 12, 13.
Okay.
12, 13, she shows up at the Xavier mansion to like steal food. She's just out on the streets. She's blue. She doesn't know what the fuck she's doing.
But wait, so because in the movies...
No, this is First Class.
In First Class, they look like they're all the same age. So are they supposed to be the same age then?
Well, Xavier and her meet when they're kids.
Okay.
So that like happens even earlier. The
Right.
beginning is like when they meet, and then they're in college, and she goes like under a human face, and that's like his sister or whatever, his best friend, or I forget how they portrayed it.
Yeah.
But
I think he was saying sister, but he totally wants to bone her. I mean, maybe not in First Class, but it gets weird.
I disagree, but
It
okay.
gets weird.
So the way I'm thinking, the way I look at it is First Class and up to the first, whatever, 20 minutes of Days of Future Past all happened in the past of the original trilogy.
Yes.
And essentially, without the interference of Wolverine from the future, Mystique goes bad. She kills Trask or whoever, like what she was going to do. And essentially, Xavier cuts ties. And by the time the X-Men are present day and like what they are, 30 years later,
Right.
she's an enemy. And that's how they treat her. She's with Magneto. She's been with Magneto for 30 years, and they're enemies.
So then when it gets to X-Men of the present-ish, does she have like superpowers that keep her from aging, or is it just
she has
all an
healing factor.
illusion? Okay.
She's a healing factor.
She
Remember,
did,
with the stab from the first movie.
Because obviously, Rebecca Romaine is not the same age as Sir Ian McKellen, but in the past,
No,
they're the same age.
but
well, he's a little bit older, maybe.
Right, but I think he was always older because I don't think
A little bit older, but she seemed like she was
'Cause
the
if
same
they-
age as
so. That
Patrick
was
Stewart.
so the beginning.
Yeah.
The beginning, First Class. The main story in First Class happens in 67, Bay of Pigs.
Okay.
I'm gonna fact check myself. Bay of Pigs. 61. Jesus, that was a long time ago. So they 61. So
Okay.
let's say they're in college, so they're 21, 20. So they're 20 years old in college.
Well, because Magneto would have to be old enough to have been a young kid when he was sent to a concentration camp.
Yeah. So if he was 12 in 1944, even 1945, it doesn't matter. He didn't have to spend a ton of time there. That would make him at least 10 years older than them.
That would make sense because I feel that in the going
Yeah.
back that he looked maybe about 10 years older.
Yeah, I would say, that would make him about 10 years older than them, and it makes perfect sense to me. If you remember, in the first movie, Wolverine stabs Mystique, and in the second one, she pretends to be somebody, and she's like, those are the only scars that didn't heal.
Oh, seriously, dog?
Don't do it. Not on the rug. Come on.
Oh, hold on.
And we're back with the Morton Arboretum Joy Path Juniper Saison Ale.
And I have the Pommeau Light Ale, Goza Ale, aged in Pommeau barrels. Delicious.
What's that?
It's a Goza beer that has been barrel aged in a Pommeau barrel. And Pommeau,
That.
understanding is that it's like a brandy cider mix. It's like an apple brandy cider kind of mix.
Clink.
Still learning.
It's not bad. It's very beer-like.
It is a beer.
It is very beer-like. Yeah, but not all beers are beer-like.
True.
So,
So.
when Wolverine comes back from the past, he does create a different timeline.
Okay. That explains a
Or
lot.
from the future, when he comes back from the future. He creates a different timeline. And while they have not stated this anywhere, it makes sense that, and plus they're in it, it makes sense that Deadpool happens in that new timeline. In the X-Men, in Days of Future Past, you see the future where everything's fine and Jean's there, et cetera, et cetera. I would say that is that is accounting for her resurrection because we know she still dies.
Yeah.
But I think it's very interesting to think about it that way because then it's like after Dark Phoenix
Right.
and into that last section and into even Logan, which I believe happens after that scene.
Right.
I think another 10 years later, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is very much like up to the like viewer's imagination, and I dig that. So like Jean dies in whatever 1985 or whatever
Okay.
whenever the last movie was.
Yeah.
Or was it the 90s?
Oh, well,
No, because it was Days of Future Past was 70s.
Probably 80s.
So no, Apocalypse was 80s.
Oh.
So yeah, this was 90s.
Oh. Okay.
This was like 92. So yeah,
That's a lot.
So Jean dies in 92, which they're very well lived for a decade between films, as far as like
Right.
10 years between each movie happening. But I think it's cool, but like because Deadpool is like weirdly connected to reality on top of reality, he knows that something changed. And Hodges brought this up. And it could easily be the way to explain mutants in the MCU. At the end of...
I always forget that they're related.
well,
Yeah.
now they are because
Yeah.
they bought Fox.
Right.
So now they will be. Which...
Well, I mean, they had been technically just not in
just not in
what
films.
people were seeing.
Not in the movies, yeah. In the movies, they were completely unrelated.
Yes.
Now they will be. And now there's a lot of speculation about what's coming, who's going to be there.
Right.
There's a scene in the Black Widow trailer where this dude spends like 10 minutes telling us about how it's going to be Juggernaut. I'm like, well, it's one of two people because they're in Russia. We're dealing with the Winter Guard.
Where she doesn't speak Russian.
I mean, it's present day. I think what are they calling it? What do they call it? There's a thing. If they do the thing. Here's the thing. I forget what it's called. There's a term for it, but it's like you see people speaking a specific language.
Okay.
And then the camera zooms in like to the mouth.
Yes.
And then as a viewer, you understand that we are now hearing in that language. Then they switch to English and we all understand what they're saying.
Oh, yeah.
I'm okay with that. If that's what they do, aces.
I could see that.
I have no problem. Because I've seen that in like...
They're kind of doing that with... I think it's called Chernobyl. Is that the series that's out right now? Is that
Yes,
people
I
were
think so.
like, why are Belarusians speaking with British accents? And they were
Right.
kind of saying they were doing it like Valkyrie, where it was like we wanted the acting to speak for itself, not people do shitty accents.
Right. And I'm okay with it if they do that, if they simply just, we're accepting that they're speaking Russian, we're just hearing it in English.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I'm not, like, it was cool in what is it? Ghost in the Machine. It was super cool to see,
Oh,
like,
I
they had,
didn't
like,
see
the yeah, you did.
Ghost in the Machine?
Ghost in the Machine. Where ScarJo played...
Didn't see that.
You didn't see it?
No.
Really?
No.
Huh. Interesting.
Y'all went without me.
No, well. Well, Hodges owns it, so we can
Ghost in the Shell?
Ghost in the Shell. That's what I
I
meant.
still didn't see it.
That's
but
what I
yes.
meant. Ghost in the Shell. Same thing. Ghost in the Machine. It's the same concept. Ghost in the Machine is the concept that movie displays.
I did not see that.
But yeah, she plays, I mean, regardless, their boss is a Japanese-speaking man, and he only speaks Japanese, but they speak back and forth to each other. She speaks to him in English, understands his Japanese, he understands her English.
They did that in another movie.
Like, and I dug that, because I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
A, she's a robot, so like, she could just process that shit.
Right.
And B, she could probably replicate the language, so we're just hearing it in English. And that way you don't have to fucking
It's
read
like
it.
the Matrix. Japanese. Just load a file.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Those are supposed to be supposedly going off of Netflix soon. Because I think, were they Fox?
I haven't seen those in forever.
I think Disney owns them.
Oh, maybe.
I feel like they're a Fox.
Okay.
It's possible.
So
Yeah,
will
so
Neo be a Disney princess now?
yeah, Neo will be a Disney princess. But yeah, so now the real situation comes up with New Mutants. New Mutants was supposed to be the next movie in
Right.
the X-Men franchise.
Well, but it is now, right?
Well, I mean, it's coming out,
Yeah.
but it's
Postponed.
it's one of two things. If they're not going to relate it to the MCU in any way, it is a simple cash grab. They just want it to make as much money as it can,
Right.
and not have to deal with it.
Because
Then afterwards they can be like, it has nothing to do with the MCU.
It feels like a totally different movie from anything we've seen.
Oh, yeah.
It comes off more as like a psychological thriller.
Yeah, and it works so
Scary movie, which
it's so
it
perfectly.
is.
Like all those scenes of the walls coming in,
Mm-hmm.
that works very well with Mirage's power. Her power is to bring out people's fears and desires. So like she can manifest.
Oh, okay.
She like reach into your head and like let's say you really want ice cream, she can present ice cream on the table. Like so if she's new to her powers, doesn't know what they are, these kids are all freaking out. If she's just bringing out bad things, so that the like frighteners thing that's happening on the walls, I was like, that's her power. That's 100% her power. I don't know that, but I'm saying that it makes the most sense.
Okay.
I'm very interested to see how they do it because I think since it does have that horror tinge to it,
Right.
it falls into that like, oh, we're doing a type of movie on top of a superhero movie. Like when they did Homecoming, they said, oh, this is like a John Hughes movie
Yeah.
as a superhero movie.
That's cute. Aw, that makes me
And then
appreciate it even more.
when they did Ant-Man, they were like, well, it's a heist film as a superhero movie.
Okay.
So for me, this is a horror film as a superhero movie.
Yeah.
So it falls into that what they were doing anyway, kind of giving it an additional theme, not just, oh, it's another superhero movie. And I think that's really what's going to make them stand out going forward. I mean, this is going to be a super spy movie. I mean, like that's what Winter Soldier was. Winter Soldier was a good old-fashioned spy flick.
Yeah.
It was spy versus spy.
Yeah.
And that's what this is going to be. It's just a different take on it. It's government intrigue, secret programs. Right. Yeah, she's a superhero, but like
Cold War.
Yeah. And but there was a scene where they were talking that in the trailer where like something busts like through a prison like big old door, and they're like, well, it can't be the guy from Stranger Things, the Red Guardian. He's like Captain America level, and he couldn't like punch that through. And the only other people, the guy was like, oh, it could be Ursa Major, who is a member of the Winter Guard in the comics. He is a mutant who turns into a giant fucking bear.
Oh, why not?
But superpowered talking bear has the ability to punch a door out. And I'm like, that makes perfect sense to me. And then he was like, or it could be the Juggernaut. And I was like, that's a fucking stretch.
You would know if it was the Juggernaut. He would announce himself.
Well, I mean, it was a trailer, so they didn't show everything. But I was like, well, why wouldn't you jump? Like, if you're going to jump to Juggernaut, why don't you jump just a little further to Colossus, who is Russian? And it would make sense for him to be in a prison in Russia.
Right.
Because they're like, he's a mutant, lock his ass up.
Because I guess I don't know about Colossus so much, and so I would probably also assume Juggernaut.
Right. But like in Deadpool, that is what Colossus has always like felt to me.
Yeah.
This like just big dude who just wants to do the right thing.
Right.
That's like what the 90s cartoon series positioned him as. And he was just like this almost dumb, like good guy.
Okay.
Like he was just like, oh, I will do this because, and then like with his fucking cheesy ass accent in the comics, in the cartoon series. But like his whole thing was that he was just this big, I mean, he's an artist. And that's the thing. Like that's kind of a persistent thing through the comics throughout years is that he's an artist. Like he's a soft dude who turns into steel. So like he's an introvert that really just becomes a fucking introvert, just like blocks himself off from society. And I think that's a really cool A, metaphor, B, super cool power, and the fact that he's the like softest touched, most powerful dude. Like it's a cool juxtaposition. Never thought I'd use that word in an appropriate sentence.
So, okay, I can accept the alternate universes. That's fine. In Days of Future Past, they were most definitely positioning it as, I am Sir Patrick Stewart and I am Sir Ian McKellen, like in all the ways, in my opinion, like mannerisms, speech. They made a big deal about it.
Yeah, because they were hanging out.
Okay.
They were on the same film set.
Okay. Were they doing it to that extent in the school First Class?
First Class?
Were they doing that in First Class?
So no, I don't recall them to have been doing it that way.
Because then in the third one, right, Apocalypse? Was
Yeah.
that, is there one after Apocalypse? Oh
Yeah,
we
Dark
saw
Phoenix.
Dark Phoenix. Okay. So I'm trying to remember Apocalypse, cuz like in Apocalypse
He was all scraggly and he's like, "Meh."
they weren't really like doing it as much, like the mannerisms.
I hope that got on mic. I burped so violently
Okay.
inside my mouth.
And by Dark Phoenix they like weren't at all.
Right.
So what makes you think, like, that bothered me? That really bothered me. It took me out of it because, like, I thought that because having not seen First Class and seeing Days of Future Past, and Days of Future Past being very much like, we have inhabited the essence that is these great actors, to have it go from that to then they're not. I don't, like, do you see a reason for that? Especially considering if they hadn't done it in the beginning, like, why decide to do that and then go away from it again?
I say they didn't do it, but there is, I'm trying to pull up the exact, take a minute to do it, but I'm trying to pull up the exact scene. There is a scene in the First Class movie that reminds me so perfectly of a scene in a recent comic that when I think about it, when I think about that scene, I know exactly what it's doing, just like it did last time, and I don't know why it does that. There we go. The Many Lives of Moira McTaggart. So this is the current storyline. This is Dawn of X. It is everything you can imagine in like retconning in the same story. Okay. Like it's every way to go back and fix shit. Like, so do you remember Moira from the movies?
No.
So in Days of Future Past, she was like a CIA agent, and they went to her, and he's like, "I made her forget us." Or an Apocalypse rather. When he went to her for like information about Apocalypse, and she's like, he's always riding around with 4 people, his horseman, blah blah blah.
Vaguely.
Yeah, short brunette, short hair brunette. I mean, she wasn't in the movie a lot. She was in the first movie heavily. She was essentially like one of the X-Men.
I could quote you Tremors, like from start to finish. I
couldn't tell you one thing from Tremors.
Oh my god.
Because Tremors is not a great movie.
Best movie ever.
So like right here. So this scene right here where she is like at a bar. This is, I swear to you, essentially the same scene from X-Men First Class, except Moira is replacing Raven.
Okay.
Essentially the same scene.
Yeah.
Xavier is chit-chatting. So here he's bald. And now literally, I'm thinking about that movie and I have to force myself to remember that he had hair. Because it just makes sense to me that he looked the way he does in Dark Phoenix and at the end of Apocalypse.
Right.
Where his hair falls out. Like, it makes sense to me that he looked that way. So, like, the only time I can actually remember him having hair, I'm just, like, implanting these scenes that didn't exist.
Yeah.
The only time I can remember him having hair is when Logan... Is it Logan that shows up? Whoever shows up at his door... no, I think it was Days of Future Past. He shows up at his door, and Xavier's like in a wheelchair, and he's scraggly, and he's grown it all out, and school's empty and shit. Like, and he's like, he has long ass hair, and that's the only time I can remember him having hair. Outside of that, like, all I think about him as is bald.
Is this his family's house?
Yeah, it's the Xavier Mansion.
How did they get this money?
Just old money. It's been around.
Bruce Wayne money.
I don't know if it's quite Bruce Wayne old. but it's old money.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Xavier estate. It's been in the family for a long, long time. I actually, the address exists in real life, and I kind of want to go there.
You should probably not.
I mean, it's like the address is. I've looked it up on
Oh, isn't it like
Street View.
Isn't it like a post, like in the middle of nowhere?
It's not a post, but it's like the beginning of a road. I imagine to go to a property, and I'm like, I don't want to go to that property because I don't want to get shot.
Yeah.
Like, but it's cool that it's there. Like, but no, I don't think that they did it that much, but it makes perfect sense to me that they were that way. And I would say it's even to me okay that they don't sound the same after Days of Future Past because things change.
I guess.
Like Mystique is around now. He's growing up with his childhood friend, his best friend.
Wants to bone.
He does not want to bone her.
They all want to bone her.
No.
The Beast.
Because that's his girlfriend.
The ex.
That's been his girlfriend since. Technically, that's kind of been his girlfriend since the first movie, since the First Class. They were like.
Aren't they fighting because they want to bone her?
No.
No, that wasn't it.
What?
That's what I thought it was.
No, the whole thing.
I never saw the first one.
See, that's my point. You're like, oh, they're always fighting, but you don't know why. It's two diametrically opposed perspectives. It is.
Well, isn't it the same perspectives as always, where it's like we should learn to work together with the humans?
Coexistence.
And the other one is like we are better. We must kill them all.
Yeah.
We are the next chain of the evolution, and Darwin.
Yeah. Was it in Dark? I feel like it was in Dark Phoenix or in Apocalypse where they were having a chess match and they repeated that scene from the second X-Men movie where he was like, they're going to come to the school. He's like, I feel a great swell of pity for the fool that comes to that school looking for trouble. Great line. Love that interaction with Magneto and Xavier. But I think it very much kind of shows who they are. And the fact that they gave him a family in Apocalypse and then they died. That's his second family that died.
Dang.
Or even if it's his first,
I assumed it was because they were all trying to get in Raven's pants.
No.
And I figured that this animosity was
sexist.
because he had like manipulated her to go with him, and so Charles was like salty.
No, she, and you see it in First Class. She talks to Beast about it, how she feels like she should be able to be out and proud with her look and her powers and everything. And all he's doing the entire movie is trying to like cure himself. But he ends up turning himself blue in the first movie.
Wait, who?
Beast.
Oh, yeah.
Beast is human looking. He just has agility, strength, and big old monkey paws for feet. And that's the difference. He then tries to cure himself of mutation, mutating himself even further, which is part and parcel from the comics. Like, it's 100% from the comics. Except in the comics, he was working on a cure for mutation, had distilled mutation down to its, like, fundamental element, whatever the fuck that means. They never explained it.
Yeah.
And somebody, like, came to rob the like, lab that he was working at, and he's like, I gotta stop him, but I can't just put on my suit and look weird if Hank McCoy and the Beast show up in the same place. He's like, let me jank this fucking juice that causes mutation. As long as I come back in an hour, I'll be fine. He doesn't make it back, hence he's blue forever. Well, he was gray at first, but then it just kind of changed literally during one issue.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, that's terrible decision making.
Right.
Which is not unprecedented. Like, it's not. How would you say that? Which is not. Because that was like the old examples of his bad decision making, but he's had so many worse ones since. He went back in time. Let's put it this way.
So, like, what redeeming qualities does he have if they're keeping around this, like, Maniac?
Beast? Brilliant.
Oh, okay.
Brilliant. He's brilliant. He's He's a happy-go-lucky guy once he, resolves his issues with his self-hate.
Okay.
But in the comics, he has during like the worst times, and I mean like worst across the board. Like there are only 198 mutants left. He's literally trying to figure out if the species is going to extinguish, and is just trying to find a way to make mutants, like, because there was a period where mutant births stopped. Like there were just no more mutant births.
Oh.
So he reached out to Doctor Doom, worst people.
Was it just that people were reaching puberty and they weren't showing themselves? Like, how would you know that there's no births?
Cerebro tracks mutants,
yeah.
so they were just able to know that there were no mutant births. Also, Magneto's daughter got really pissed off with her brother and decided that the problem was mutants and said, no more mutants, and they all disappeared.
Oh.
That's Scarlet Witch, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, she just, at first...
Wait, but we know that because... Wait, no.
So,
hold on.
So the whole series that's about to be on...
Wait, Scarlet Witch was... Oh, fuck. I'm going to get this messed up.
She's the Olsen. She's the third Olsen.
Yeah, okay. These are separate movies, but they're together now.
Yes.
Because her brother was her brother Quicksilver?
Yeah.
And we know Quicksilver to be the son from X-Men.
Yes.
Okay. So,
so what I'm hoping, if they bring in somehow, some magical way, if they bring in the Quicksilver from the X-Men movies, which was so fucking good.
Yeah.
And if they could somehow magically do it, I'd be okay with, they were always brother and sister. That'd be a retcon I'd perfectly accept. Because, was it Michael Aaron Thomas? Or what is that his name?
I don't remember.
Michael Aaron... something... Aaron Taylor Johnson. That's the one. Aaron Taylor Johnson's terrible, terrible accent. Bet you didn't see that coming. Fucking guy.
It was still better than Scarlett Johansson's Russian.
That's fair, but like at least she tried. He was trying.
Did she though?
She did, I think.
She has the money for she has the money. She had the money. I felt like it was totally...
Georgia, go lay down.
I'm willing to forgive a crappy Russian accent over somebody who was supposed to be a from birth Russian speaker who sounds worse than like anybody that I took Russian class with. It was very hard.
But I will counter that by saying that she was trained to be an American for the purpose of spying on Americans.
I suppose.
So that'd be my counter argument.
Do not like.
But so the whole WandaVision, terrible fucking name, but the WandaVision series that's coming on DC Plus or Disney Plus, that is an example of her power. If you remember in Endgame, when they all come back in fucking the glorious moment, all the circles open and they all come out, and I cried, and she goes up to Thanos and she's like, "You took everything from me," and he's like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And then she almost fucking kills him.
Yes.
And he's like, "Fucking rain down fire," and they're like, "But our troops," and he's like, "Fucking do it," because this bitch is about to kill me.
Oh shit.
That's how powerful she is. So that was one example. This is going to be a new example where she's going to create a pocket reality for herself. I think out of grief, because like her brother's dead, her lover's dead.
Right.
I don't know if they had sex.
Where's she from?
Scarlet Witch? Like you're talking about?
WandaVision. Or what?
Yeah, Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is going to be, that's her show.
Oh.
So it's Wanda and Vision. Wanda is her name.
Oh.
Her name is Wanda. She is a fish called Wanda.
It's too many plots.
Too
many cooks.
Dude, yeah, too many cooks.
Too many cooks.
A lot of the shit in comics is because of too many cooks. But they were just talking about that today. They were talking about, and I'm just going to touch on this really briefly, a third Summers brother. So you didn't see First Class.
I did not.
the first Summers X-Man. So in the comics, the first X-Man was Cyclops, always.
Oh, really?
In the movies, it was Alex, his brother, his younger brother. But somehow he was his older brother. And then he dies in the second one. When he's like, when they're... no, it was Apocalypse. He dies in Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Because he's like, oh, I'm trying to reach into his brain. And he's like, he's fucking feeding back. And they all run out. And he's like, fucking go. I'll fucking hold back the explosion. Because Cerebro is about to explode for some reason.
Okay.
And Quicksilver comes and he saves everybody. And it's cute. And he pulls everyone out except Alex. And he's like, I hope I got everybody. And it was like the worst fucking way to kill someone. It was like, I hope I got everybody.
They forgot about it.
So, like, you let him die, bro.
Oh,
like,
no.
Come on.
That's why you have to have the buddy system.
Right? But, like, so the two of them in the comics for 30 years, were the two Summers brothers. And then and Sinister shows up one day at the school and he's talking to Cyclops, as he's wont to do. And he's like, I've been watching you and your brothers for a long time. He's like, brothers? He's like, my mistake.
I have a question.
And he walks away.
This is going to probably show how much I haven't been paying attention.
No.
Was Sinister the...
Sinister was never in the movies. His name was mentioned.
Okay.
At the end of... What movie was it? Apocalypse?
Okay. I was going to say...
Where they had it was somebody like collecting mutant samples and they put it in the case and they closed the case and it said Essex. That's the only time you've seen him. And it is safe to assume, due to that Laura, the clone in Logan, was because of Essex.
Wait. In Logan?
The little girl.
Oh, yeah.
The little girl with claws.
Yes. Well, how does she relate to New Mutants then? Or does she? No?
No.
But my other question is... Wait, but... She came from a facility where they were creating mutants using his DNA, right?
Well, they created her, certainly, using his
Yeah.
DNA. I don't know that they were creating...
But New Mutants is just... It's not... It's
a lot of the
separate.
people in that movie were New Mutants analogs, which is why I was confused, to say the least.
Can you explain to me why, when they made a clone,
They made a girl?
yeah.
So I can explain. I don't know the movie logic. I can explain to you.
That's not science.
Well, I can explain to you the comic book logic.
Okay.
Originally, basically, the reasoning for it was, like the process wasn't working when we were trying to do, just, was it Innocent Lost? Yes. So they were saying like, the process wasn't working when we kept trying to make male clones. So she's like, what if we make a female clone?
And they were like, that is not a clone.
Because she's the mom, like the mom. She's the one. She's the scientist. Not the blonde. The dark hair.
Okay.
She's basically like, yeah, right here. Proceed with. She says, screw them. I'm gonna try making a female, and it works. And it's this whole thing.
So then, is it hers?
Well, the whole thing is she's creating a clone. So the original logic, right, was that due to the repeated failed attempts to make a XY clone, she said, fuck it, I'm going to try XX, see what happens. It works. The fetus is, what's the word? The fetus is viable, but it needs a body, so then she carries the child's term. Was it? I don't know.
Well, that's terrifying.
Yeah, to carry the clone. So she turns into the womb for the child, and she becomes her natural mother.
Okay.
Except later, in basically a throwaway line by fucking Tony Stark, he's like, hey, I got to tell you something about your relationship with Wolverine. And she's like, no, yeah, I'm his clone. I know. Like, everybody fucking knows. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no. He's like, I ran your DNA. He's like, you're his daughter. Mm. So, essentially, they retconned this whole scenario to say that she did not, like, clone his DNA. She just, like,
combined.
Used her, like, essentially impregnated herself with his semen. Well, with his involuntary child. It's jizz theft, is what it is. So yeah, she's born with 2 claws and 1 on her foot. I forget if that was in the movie, but the 1 on her foot is kind of dope because the first time she uses it, she just fucks a dude up. And in the
I think it was in the movie.
Yeah, I feel like it was. So she raises her, but they also teach her, all the fucking ways to kill people. And during that time while she's being raised, Wolverine is also, I think he's on premises. I think this was supposed to be happening like around the same time when he got his medal. And then he bailed, or it was maybe afterwards and he's just remembering. Yeah, but like it was part of the same project, same program. And, but yeah, so yeah, Tony Stark says, no, you're his actual daughter. So the logic was that a male clone wasn't working, which obviously they couldn't use in the movie because they totally made a male clone. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good way to explain it away. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting because she's from 12. I think 12 is when her mom dies. So she essentially just becomes this weapon. Aww. And she has a scent that will just blind murderous rage. Just if that, like, so it's like a tag. You meet with this guy and say, oh, check out this perfume. Boom. Move away. She just has to be within 100 yards. She'll smell it and kill that person.
Oh, snap.
And it's like, essentially like the ultimate hands off. Like, I didn't kill him. So she was a weapon for a long time. And then Wolverine found her essentially by accident, wearing one of his old costumes. Who fucking knows how? That's just like, it's like fun things that people want, like, do in a comic book, and then you just have to figure out how the fuck that happened.
Right.
Because in retrospect, it was a costume he stole from another dude, from a space dude. So, like, how the hell she got it and how it fits, no fucking clue. Because I don't think he was ever on Earth with that costume. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be okay if they used her too. Like, if they said she was going to be Wolverine, no problems. Because Hodges was saying that Jackman might like reprise his role as Old Man Logan.
I thought maybe, but I thought he was done.
I also thought he was done, but I would not be mad if he did more.
Even if there's money to be made, why not?
Right. I mean, there's always money to be made, but I just mean like if
you can't have him go out with like what is that? Greatest Showman. This is magnum opus.
Well, like, my thing would be, you could call it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it would work. I don't know if comic book naming schemes would work for movies. So what they did in the comics, she was the all new Wolverine, and when Logan died, she took over and she became Wolverine.
Oh, I remember that. I do remember seeing this.
And I was like, oh, it'd be cool, like, if he did come back and, like, pass the torch. And, like, because the universes merged or whatever the fuck reason you want to give it. And I know a lot of people would, like, lose their shit over it. I'm perfectly fine with, like, a hand wave explanation of why they're together now. I mean, flat out, I was telling Hodges, there's a recent story in X-Men where not Jean, but another telepath, Emma Frost, she was in the first movie, you didn't watch it, in the First Class. Emma Frost, through the help of Cerebro and some other technology, wipes out all of humanity's memory of mutants. And I mean, they can't, to the level of that, they can't perceive mutation. Like, Scott and Alex are hanging out in the park, and Scott just fires off a blast straight into the sky, and nobody flinches. Because they can't even perceive powers from mutants anymore. So essentially, like, they're hiding permanently. And my thought was like, that'd be because they were like on like the X-Men had died from their perspective. A bunch of their friends had just died, and like a lot of shit had just gone down. There was only a few of them left. They're like, fuck this. Like, we fucking tried. We tried, man. Like, fuck it.
Right.
And then, you know, at the last second, they're like, do we want to fucking hide forever? Like, no. Fucking turn it off. And they turned it off. They're back. But anyway, my thought was, you can say that they have always been there due to whatever conflict scenario. Come up with some shit. I don't care. Because reason X, and that could be a later movie that they have to deal with now that it's not happening anymore. Because of reason X, they had to wipe out everyone's perception of mutants. No one knows mutants exist until 2025, after the blip, whatever they're calling it, after the snap, and everyone came back, and now the rules are changed or some other bullshit, and or fuck, that was easy. The person that was maintaining that disappeared as part of the snap. And so during the 5 years, mutants showed up around the planet.
Okay.
So when they came back, the person was like, oh shit, I was not around for this. And they're like, nah, the fucking cat's out of the bag now. Mutants are, like, people are aware of mutants again. And then it's like, what was that reason? You could do a fucking trilogy of movies about why that was a thing, why it needed to happen, and like now that bad guy or whatever is going to come back, and now the Avengers and the X-Men have to all band together and protect, you know, whatever.
So if I were going to rewatch/watch X-Men, what order would you suggest I watch them in?
I mean, here, I'm a completionist, so
Yeah.
I watch a particular order.
It would have to be like Wolverine Origins, right? Unfortunately. And then the other
technically,
Wolverine?
no. Technically, that Wolverine happens after the third X-Men movie.
What?
That Wolverine happens in the original timeline. It's very difficult. I understand. So, I wish I could, like, draw this. I mean, I suppose I could, but...
Post-production.
Original timeline, right?
Okay.
X-Men, X2, X-Men 3, The Last Stand.
Yep. Logan?
Logan. Not Logan. The Wolverine.
Oh.
With the ninjas. Happens afterwards.
Does it? What?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes.
I guess so.
Leading into the future events in Days of Future Past. So after that is the future events of Days of Future Past. We are, yes, ignoring how Xavier is back because he died at the end of Last Stand. But my thought is, because remember at the end of the movie, because at the beginning of the movie they were like, oh, this is my colleague Moira McTaggart. She's on a research island of Muir in Ireland. Scotland, I take that back. She's a fucking Scottish Highlander. I'm an asshole. They have a comatose person who is essentially was not born in a coma, but has been in a coma forever. Like, it has no brain activity.
Right.
It is a living body with no consciousness. And he was like, you know, it was like a morality debate, right? And at the end of the movie, remember he Phoenix disincorporates him. And he smiles at Logan, and I was like, dick move. Like, you just died with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
But then at the end, after, like, everything, credits roll, Moira's with that body, and he's like, hello, Moira. And she's like, Charles? And that's how the movie ends.
Oh, yeah.
My thought is that body was Mimic or Changeling or whatever you want to call him, who had the ability to change bodies. And because Xavier has only known paralysis for 30 years... 40 years, whatever, whenever, you know, Apocalypse happened, or, First Class, 40 years.
Okay.
He doesn't know how to use his legs. So he's still paralyzed.
Okay.
It's essentially, at that point, psychosomatic, but we just don't deal with that. Okay. So when he transfers his consciousness, it's into a body that turns into his body. And that's how he's back, which makes sense to me. But, so, X-Men, X2, X3, The Wolverine, future events of Days of Future Past. Before that is First Class and the first, 20 minutes of Days of Future Past. Before future Logan comes back. At that point, we have divergent timeline. So, the events of Days of Future Past with future Wolverine in old Wolverine's body.
Okay.
And into Apocalypse, into Dark Phoenix.
Okay.
My belief, also into Deadpool and Deadpool 2. And then into Logan.
Okay.
People have argued that Logan happens in the original timeline due to the fact of referencing the events at, what's it called?
Dark Phoenix?
No, the one with the M. The events of Liberty Island, not Magneto with Rogue and all that.
Yeah.
My thought is that still fucking happened. And that's still the first time they like went into action with Wolverine.
Oh, okay.
They just, that team of X-Men did not know him. So that was the first time they met him.
Right.
So after the 90s, Jean dies. Let's say Beast leaves. He goes on to be a professor, comes back in X3, like in the events of X3. Jean never becomes the Phoenix, or Jean, because Jean dies, Beast partners with Essex, creates a clone, Jean's back. Like, there's ways to explain it.
Okay.
So then the last few scenes of Days of Future Past, when he goes back to the future and Jean's alive and Scott's cool, and like they show like we get there, and then it's Logan after that, which is like 5-10 years later when people stop, like mutant births stop.
Yeah.
There is like the whatever virus or whatever the fuck they said. So it all works, in my opinion. People tried to overcomplicate it. People were like, Colossus didn't have an accent in the first one. I'm like, right. But if you take out future Wolverine, all that happens is that Mystique kills Trask in a boardroom. That's it. Mystique kills Trask in a boardroom. He dies. There is no public revelation of mutants.
Right.
So America is a safe place. Mama and Daddy Rasputin, Rasputin. Mama and Daddy Rasputin decide in who fucking knows, 83, let's go to America. With baby Pyotr in the womb still. He comes out, is raised an American, he has an English accent in the first timeline. Due to the events of the crazy shit that happened on national television in Days of Future Past, they decide to stay in Mother Russia for several years longer. They don't have a kid for much longer. Pyotr is born and raised in Russia, and Xavier goes and gets him at some point. He's like, hey, you're a mutant, just go hang out with us.
Right.
And now he's Russian. Very simple explanation to me. But everyone was like, it's different. I'm like, it's not. I don't even know why it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Like, time happened differently, so shit happened differently. It just makes sense to me. Like, New Mutants was the one the wild card, honestly. It was the one that I didn't know how it was going to fit in.
Right.
And now I'm really hoping.
And to me, it doesn't even feel like a X-Men movie.
Right. Because the first time I saw the trailer, I'm like watching stuff, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, I was like catching some of the New Mutants references before the name ever popped up. And I was like, why does this feel like Demon Bear? Which is like a huge thing. Demon Bear. And then it was like New Mutants. I was like, wait a minute, like New Mutants? New Mutants? Like, that was not at all what I was expecting.
Yeah.
Not even close. So, yeah, I was super excited, and then they were like, delayed and delayed and delayed. And I was just like, these people are going to be 40 by the time this comes out. But
here we are.
My thing is, they showed.
When does it come out? It comes out soon, next week?
April.
Oh,
April.
damn.
Next week is Birds.
Oh, yes.
Which
could go either way.
They showed, like, the most recent trailer that I saw, or on TikTok of all places, was because of cosplayers, which is smart, realistically. Showed a bunch of action sequences, and like one of the lines is like, you know how you get like to get men's attention, you got to show them like action. And I was like, really? This is like, and that's like Harley says that, like about the character, and I was like, I mean, like I guess.
Yeah.
I'm the DC side of things. I'm so concerned about because, I mean, Wonder Woman's coming out. Shazam 2 is definitely on board.
Oh,
Aquaman 2 is going to happen.
I never saw it.
But like all those characters were in Justice League, and if you're going to tell me the Batman's different,
yeah,
you can't tell me it's the same universe.
Right.
Because if they try to play that,
well,
I'm not interested.
Robert Pattinson is supposed to be Batman.
I can accept Robert Pattinson as young Bruce Wayne, and that could be a prequel, and you could have not a Superman in that movie or anybody else. But I'm just honestly not interested. Like, they are talking about a Flashpoint movie, which in theory could fix that. So Flashpoint.
Nah, you don't need to tell me.
It's essentially a big retcon.
Okay.
It's in the fewest words possible. Barry Allen, Flash, decides on a whim he's going to go back and save his mother. So instead of his mom dying, she stays alive. He saves her, and that causes a chain effect that ripples throughout the universe. And Bruce dies instead of his parents. Thomas Wayne becomes Batman, like in a dark, like punishing Batman with guns and shit. Martha Wayne becomes Joker, just losing her shit because her kid dies.
Yeah.
Superman is found by the government and kept in a fucking box for 40 years. So he's just this like frail, skinny dude. Wonder Woman leads her nation of Amazons to fight the armies of Atlantis. And that's like the big thing that's happening. And the most popular and famous superhero is Cyborg. Yeah, it's a different universe.
Wow.
And I'm thinking they're basically going to do that whole thing because Jeffrey Dean Morgan
I like him.
went on Instagram, I think, and showed a picture of his domino mask from Watchmen. And was like, oh, almost 10 years ago or whatever. And then he was like, let's give it up for like the return of like the return to Mask or something in 2020. And
is Watchmen linked to any of these things?
Technically, yes.
Oh, okay.
All of the shit apparently is Dr. Manhattan's fault. Did you watch the Watchmen movie?
Yeah.
So
I did not like it the first time I saw it. I did not like it. I watched it again and I had a better appreciation.
I honestly think that I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have.
Because I loved 300. I loved 300 so much. And then when I was like, oh, similar.
Entirely similar in presentation.
Yeah, I was excited,
style.
But it was not.
No, definitely not. No, definitely not. I would definitely. The coolest thing. I mean, the whole premise that Ozymandias says, "Oh, I'm going to create this like common enemy to like make everybody shake hands and be nice with each other." It's a solid fucking plan. In the comics, he created alien octopus monsters. Because if he decided very intelligently that if he were to use nukes, it would look like it was Dr. Manhattan and everyone would think it was America's fault.
Right.
So he's like, I'm going to invent these giant alien octopus things. They kill thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people. And he basically says, like, this is the only way they're fucking going to get along, if they have a common enemy. And he like tells them his whole story, and like I think they did it in the movie too. But he tells them the whole thing, and they're like, "When are you gonna do this?" And he's like, "Do." It's like, "Do you think I would tell you this whole thing if there was even the slightest chance of you stopping me? I did it 45 minutes ago." And it's like the most gangster fucking line of any fucking thing written ever. And yeah, they basically like look outside, and fucking London is ablaze.
Yeah.
But like, remember how Dr. Manhattan was like so uber powerful in that? Like he was just creating shit out of fucking nothing. Essentially, what they said that after Flashpoint, which like did happen and it was Barry's fault, when he came back to like fix shit, while he was coming back, Dr. Manhattan like noticed that from another universe and was just like, what if Superman hadn't been around for 40 years? What if he just showed up 5 years ago? And just like basically had a bunch of what ifs and was like just like poked around with reality and rearranged shit, and that's why the universe was different after Flash came back to fix things. And I was just like, it was basically DC editorial being like, not our fault.
Yeah.
Everything you didn't like about the last 5 years, not our fault. It was Dr. Manhattan. We didn't do it.
Okay.
But like I that is the only way I'll accept Robert Pattinson as like the Batman. Otherwise, that has to be like the Joker.
It's an alternate reality where
Just like
we
the Joker.
consider Robert Pattinson to be attractive.
I think he could be attractive if he presents himself a certain way. If he's going to be jacked for this,
We'll see.
he's going to be jacked. I mean, let's take a look. He's filming. I think he's filming
Robert
already.
Jackinson.
Nah, Robert Pattinson.
He's so weird looking to me.
Batman. Well, let's say 2020.
Which is fine if he's just doing Robert Pattinson things, but for Batman,
he's
I
just
feel
doing
like you
Robert
have to
Pattinson
be
things.
very attractive.
Just some Robert Pattinson
and
things.
oh, okay, all right, I can see it there.
Where?
The one you got your the one.
This?
Yeah, is that him or is that just someone
That's
that looks
him.
like him? Okay.
It's
All
listen,
right.
It's not. Hottest thinks it's
I'll
this like
consider it.
ridiculous far reach. I don't think,
it's
it's that
just
big
because
a
most
reach.
of the times when I see him, he's got this like messy hair.
Yeah.
He's not coiffed.
No, but I mean like.
Okay.
I mean that's obviously
Meh.
super younger and shit, but. I mean that even looks like a
Okay.
younger Ben Affleck.
All right.
That to a point even looks like a younger Ben Affleck.
I'll
And
consider. Has anybody done any mock-ups of the announcements of the people that we didn't feel should be playing the people
like-
they're going to be playing?
like imagine that. I mean,
I mean, maybe.
what do you mean?
What was it? The Irish actor.
Who are they playing?
Penguin and
I actually think there is a Colin
Colin Firth.
Farrell.
No, is it?
Colin
Oh, yeah, it is
Farrell.
Farrell. Fuck, Firth, that would be creepy.
Riddler.
Yeah.
I think they said.
Fiddler. Like I was like Fiddler.
I think
Riddler.
this is this the one that's supposed to be the actual that.
He looks like a magician.
I mean, that's kind of what Riddler's shtick
I
is.
suppose.
And
then who was the other?
really, no one's done a
person?
mock-up of this.
Who was the other person?
What is? Fucking Gollum.
Oh, Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis.
That's not how you spell it
Penguin.
at all. No, that's not. No.
What the fuck? It completely.
I think it's like Cirkus. I could be wrong. Or S? Is it an S?
Oh, I think it's this.
Oh, there we go.
It's Andy Serkis.
Penguin.
I mean,
Okay.
sure, but that all that is to
He
me.
can do anything.
But you know what? All that is to me is Danny DeVito's Penguin. 100%. That's Danny DeVito's
But I mean,
Penguin.
I feel like that's the Penguin that Gotham deserves.
I don't want him to have a beard. Like, I wouldn't be mad at it, but part of the whole thing is.
But DeVito didn't have a beard.
No, he didn't. But that's what it feels like.
Well, he has to be a little fuzzy. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean,
I wouldn't.
Here's the thing: Andy Serkis can do no wrong, as far as I'm.
He can do no wrong,
concerned.
but it's just like a waste.
But-
No.
but
That's not what he
Colin,
wasn't.
Colin Farrell.
No.
I'm wondering about.
I'm done. I'm done. He's
What?
gonna be Alfred.
Oh.
He's gonna be Alfred.
Yeah.
He's gonna be Alfred. Colin Farrell's gonna be.
Oh, okay. Meh.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't despise it. Like,
I'll consider.
that's what Alfred looks like to me. And even like Pennyworth on the show looks like a younger version of this guy, the comic book guy.
Yeah.
So like.
Oh, well, there he is. There, kind of younger and bald.
No, I see what you're saying. Colin Farrell, Penguin. That's what it is.
Is
Not
that what he's
Riddler.
supposed to be?
Yeah, he's supposed to be Penguin.
Uh,
When was this? He's got a cane. I mean, but that's the thing. If you look something like that, granted, I don't think the mustache is going to work, but
I'm not sold.
I'm really not.
I will suspend my
there it is.
disbelief.
Set photos. That's what I was looking for. I knew. Yeah. So like that's. I don't know.
Meh.
Is that supposed to be him? Is he gray haired? He's got the umbrella, which is the signature.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know. I'm not very sold on the idea of Colin Farrell as the Penguin. I didn't love the Penguin on the Gotham TV series. He was a skinny dude. He kind of was just. I mean, granted, a lot of it was the writing and the performance, so like that's different. But I don't know. Part of the whole thing is that he's almost this like comically ridiculous bad guy that you wouldn't think he's a threat.
I suppose.
And the whole thing for me is I would.
He's just so crazy that he'll do it.
Yeah, but I would prefer to see because he's a schemer, and that was the big thing for me in the show is he was, but at the same time like he was either bad at it, like there were seasons where he was bad at it. And there were seasons where he was just too violent, like too like overtly violent. The whole thing in the comics for me, and because that's why like he's a staple, is that he runs this casino and he maintains an air of legitimacy.
Okay.
So like he passes as a businessman, but he's like money laundering. He's like the getaway guy for people. Like people go to the casino to hide from Batman and the cops. So, but like. And he's like, what are you guys going to do? Like, you can search me. I'm a legitimate businessman. And that's always...
I'm selling maraschino cherry.
Exactly. He's selling maraschino cherry. Oh my God, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. Oh my God.
That's still my favorite story.
If you guys don't know that story, real quick, there was a guy who was in charge of all the maraschino cherries in the nation, basically. Like not all of them,
but
New
York area or something.
But like a good chunk. If you went to a restaurant or went to a bar and got a maraschino cherry, it came from this dude's warehouse, and it was a very lucrative business. But he apparently was not satisfied, and then the what is it the F? Damn it!
It was like the FDA.
The ATF shows up.
Was it ATF? FDA? I thought it was just like a food inspection thing. Just
food
like
and drug.
the
FDA.
Oh, maybe,
FDA.
Yeah.
FDA, maybe he heard FBI. He heard F and ran.
He's like, F.
Right, he's like, F. And opens a fucking door that no one knew was there.
Or I thought they like came across it. They like came across this thing and were like, what's behind door number 1? And he was like, oh, nothing.
So he runs into this room, locks himself in, hollers, tell my wife and kids I love them, and fucking kills himself.
Yeah.
Because he had a mountain of cocaine in there.
And it was like so much cocaine that you have to have a trial, but there would have been no point to the trial because the amount of drugs that he had would be sending you to jail for life.
Right. I mean, I get it, but
go.
Yeah, do not collect. Yeah, but and like he was the guy, so he had no one to give up. Yeah. He was the guy.
Oh no.
He wasn't like a street level guy who could give up the guy. He was the guy.
He was the guy.
So it was a call. He made a call. Like, yeah, you gotta hate to be his kids though, growing up. Like, what's it?
Did you see the story that I told Wait, maybe I was talking to her privately. Did you see the story that I told Rachel about the nuclear explosion?
What?
So I'm listening to this podcast called American Innovations, and they were doing I think it was a 6-part series about nuclear power and how it came to fruition and then how it's been used and how they intend to use it or versions of it going forward. Because you had nuclear fission and now they're working on nuclear fusion, yada, yada. So I think it was 3 Mile Island. 3 Mile Island or maybe something before that, there was a nuclear power plant disaster that when the firefighters showed up, there was one person that was dead on the floor from the explosion. there was another person that had been like thrown into a beam or something, and then was just like laying on the floor and was like almost dead.
Ugh, rough.
And then the creepiest one was that they're like, well, there's supposed to be 3 people working here. Where's the third person? And one of them looked up and saw that the third person had been thrown to the ceiling and impaled on something and was dead. And then they realized that it was a nuclear blast, and so they left, and I think they had to wait like a week before they came back to clean up. And the body was still up there, and it hadn't even really started to decompose yet because the explosion had killed all the microbes in the area.
Jesus Christ.
Speaking of Manhattan.
See, that's like the bad decision making that I always think about when I hear shit like, oh, we're trying to create a miniature black hole on Earth. And I'm just like, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
That sounds the worst of ideas.
Right.
Like, the Super Collider, they're like, oh, we're trying to create a tiny black hole. And I was like...
Oh, yeah, that ends well. They should have seen... Have you seen the Simpsons episode?
No.
The black hole?
Oh, where he goes in and comes out in our reality? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, they're going to fucking create a black hole. I'm like, as far as I'm aware...
These never end well.
Like, I don't know of a story. Like, I don't even know of a science fiction story that talks about how a black hole is created and it remains stable and never changes size and never absorbs anything around it.
Yeah.
I just have never heard that story. It's always, it takes in every piece of light and energy and matter around it.
Right.
And if it's on Earth, all of that is all around it.
Right.
Like, every single time I've heard anything about black holes, they absorb everything.
Right.
So that sounds terrible. And it'd be, bad decision making. Like, if you want to do that, go to Mars. Like, go to Mars, set up base, then go to, like, Pluto. Do it there first. Mm-hmm. Like, start on the other end. Because, like, don't start close to the sun, because God forbid you kill the sun, then we're all fucked.
Oh, God. Right.
Yeah, there's curiosity killed the cat. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be the fucking cat. Like, let's let some shit be. They were like, oh, we're trying to find the God particle. I'm like, let God have that one.
Yeah.
Just let him have it. Like,
it's his.
He knows what it does. He knows how it works. That seems ambitious for our level of development.
Right.
Like, once we're in space and we can dedicate a solar system to this process, sure. Yeah, fuck around with it.
Alternate dimensions. Were you out driving in the fog today?
Yeah.
It was really bad in Oak Brook.
Dude, because I was going up to the auto shop, I probably had zero visibility past half a mile.
I was telling my coworker about the movie The Mist. Because she was like, it looks like a horror film. And I said, have you seen The Mist? And she said she doesn't really do scary movies. So I was like, well, if you have no intentions of watching it, let me tell you about it. So I told her.
I've never seen it, but the worst fog I ever saw was...
Alternate dimensions, science.
Ben and I went up to Manistee. And I think it was the first time I was going up, and it was getting foggier as we got there. And then we didn't go to the house right away. We went to the beach. He wanted to show me the dunes because it was all big sandy and shit like that. We get there, and we pull up, and you can see you're supposed to be able to see the lake. Nothing.
Oh no.
Just nothing. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then we start walking out onto the beach, and there is sand. Yeah. But there is no water. It's just like a fucking wall.
Right.
And I was like, did it all die while we were on the way here? Oh, no. Did the world end?
What if the movie The Mist and Stranger Things were in the same universe? I've
never seen The Mist. You've explained The Mist. I've seen a few of that show you were watching.
It was not a great movie because what's the actor's name? Stephen Jane? Or what's Thomas Jane? He's not my favorite in like anything.
He did a great Punisher. Thank you very much.
I never saw that, so I will save.
It's
hold judgment.
It's the better of the two. I'm sure of it.
Never saw it. But,
it's less violent, but.
Well, I mean they kind of. I'm trying to remember if I think in the show that they had it that it was like a military facility accidentally opened up an alternate universe. But I don't remember from the show because it was kind of disjointed. But in the movie version, there's a military base up in the mountains, and they open up an alternate dimension,
Right.
which allows the mist comes in and then the creatures.
Right. It's basically Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
It's basically the same fucking plot.
Yeah.
So the Stranger Things, what you're saying is Stranger Things is not actually an original concept. It's just a fucking...
It was much better.
They were like, let's do the Mist in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like...
It was creepy.
I don't know. I would not be interested in crossing over things. Although
True.
I wouldn't be mad if... like, if you were to tell me...
Is Pepper in the bathroom?
Yeah.
Oh.
If you were to tell me that... that
Come here, tiny dog.
Stranger Things is the same world as... if you're going to do that, hold the noise not away from the mic.
Whatever. Circle of honey.
If they were to say that they're in the same universe as Ghostbusters, makes perfect sense to me.
Oh, that works too.
Makes perfect sense to me. Go on.
Jackie said she's never
Go on.
seen any of the Ghostbusters.
Go on, you're making a lot of noise.
None of them.
Well, yeah, people don't like certain things.
I mean, I don't think it's a matter of not liking.
You've never seen Coming to America, Monster?
I'm not opposed to it.
I would have questions if you were.
Okay, but
Better not pee on my rug, dog.
don't do it.
Why are you smelling her? Why are you smelling her? She trying to do stuff?
Whatever. Well, I think we should wrap it up because now it's becoming a tangents of the tangents.
That's always tangents. Tangential tangents.
She jumped up by... Oh, we knew she could do that.
Yeah, no, she's been doing that. Been doing that for years. It's dog stuff. It's the dog stuff right there. But yeah, so what movie are you excited for this year? We're going to close out with that.
Mulan.
Really? That's the one?
I'm very excited for Mulan. Ghostbusters.
Oh my God.
What's
yes.
is there a tag? What is it? The tag?
Afterlife.
Afterlife. Speaking of Stranger Things, because they have the actor from it. I'm wondering if his sibling is supposed to be like gender neutral. I can't tell. I think that
It's
they're
possible.
supposed to be.
It's possible. I'd be perfectly okay with it if
I think
they
that'd be
were.
cool.
I think you're gonna have, if that is the case, you are gonna have a lot of people be like,
Oh, people are gonna be mad.
oh, you have to have one of these and everything. I'm like, you don't have to, but if there's not a reason not to, why not? You know, like I thought about this when looking at the Wolfpack script, and when I was looking at the designs, and I was like, originally, through no like intent or the main team was all white, and I was like, well, there's no reason for them not to be something else.
Right.
There's no reason for them to be white specifically. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna mix it up then.
Yeah. What is there?
There's like, and it makes sense, like, because I think a lot of people are complaining because that's just not been how it's been.
Right.
But I'm like, what the fuck's it matter?
Here, let me see what movies. Let me see
Like,
if I can
what
see
the fuck's it
movies
matter
I'm
if you
excited
present?
about.
I'm okay. Like the fact that Batwoman and like that last episode of Batwoman was actually really good because Batwoman on the show came out as gay. So like now she is the gay. She's not the gay hero, but she's a hero who is gay, and that is a big thing for people. I'm sure, especially in universe.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing, like, if you can, like, if nothing about the story hinges on a heterosexual relationship or a cisgendered representation, what the fuck is better? Like, what does it matter?
Where did my calendar go?
That's my thing, is people...
Oh, there we go.
People, I think, when they complain about that kind of shit, they see it happening a lot because I think there's no reason not to, so people do because... Why not represent someone?
Right. So like, I could go either way for Birds of Prey.
I'll watch it matinee during the day.
Same for Sonic, personally.
I'm excited for Sonic. It looks funny, genuinely funny.
I do not have high expectations for Call of the Wild, but it looks entertaining enough.
What the fuck is Call of the Wild?
Call of the Wild is a Jack London novel, I want to say.
Okay.
And they are doing it where, what's his name? Harrison Ford is going to be the main character, and then his companion, who is a dog, is...
Oh, okay. Oh, it's a dog.
I read it so long ago. I can't... Maybe I'm mixing
it's
these
a dog
up.
movie.
I might be mixing this up with another novel, because I feel like if it is Jack London, I feel like he wrote a lot of novels that were like about dogs or wolves or dog wolves. And so I think that might be the one where like the dog,
there is a dog
eventually joins the wolves.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
If
fair.
it's the one that I think it is.
Looks like there's been a couple
Yeah.
adaptations of it over the years. Call of the
Yeah.
Wild 3D.
Oh. But yeah, I think it's like, he's with people, and then I want to say maybe something befalls his human, or the human leaves him or something, and he gets separated, and I think he has to...
Does it talk?
I think they're going to make it talk.
That's dope.
I mean, it doesn't in the
Talking
book.
dog movies.
No, maybe in the book there was like, it might have either been...
If it doesn't talk, I want Morgan
I
Freeman
can't
to narrate
remember
the
if
rest
it was
of it.
like a narration from the dog's point of view, or if it was somebody
Right.
narrating about the dog.
If the dog doesn't talk directly and it doesn't have its own thoughts,
It
I want
does
more...
in these movies, it looks like.
Okay.
The dog's totally CGI as far as I can tell.
Because if it doesn't talk, I want Morgan Freeman to narrate everything after the human dies.
And then, is there
Just from
anything
that
else?
point. Just all of a sudden it's Morgan
I
Freeman.
feel okay about Godzilla versus King Kong.
Oh my God, that's this year.
Yeah, in March. March 13th.
That is super
if they
soon,
haven't
and we haven't
changed
seen
it.
a single trailer?
Maybe they pushed it?
That is...
Oh, I'm cautiously optimistic for A Quiet Place 2.
Godzilla King Kong 20... It says 2020. Interesting. We'll see. 2020 sci-fi thriller. Project was announced in October 2015. Scheduled November. Okay. I mean, it says November 20th, 2020.
Oh, they changed it then?
They changed it.
Let
November
me see.
20th.
Hold on. November 20th?
November 20th.
It was supposed to be March 13th.
Yeah, it says... maybe that was the original announcement.
Yeah.
Although it says it wrapped last year, so it's finished.
Yeah.
So it's just CG.
Yeah, so then Mulan is... granted, I put all of these in my phone like a while ago,
Sure.
so things might have changed. March 27th, Mulan.
Right. And then New
X-Men, New Mutants. Yeah, New Mutants, March... or
April 9th.
April 3rd.
3rd.
Maybe, unless that changed
No, I think
again.
that's accurate.
Um,
So far, that's the one I'm like really most excited about out of that list.
what's this one? Black Widow, May 1st.
That's a good gap. That's like a month gap. That I like that because that lets, I mean, depending on what else is coming out, but that potentially lets New Mutants breathe and lets it kind of make the most money it can.
You're gonna be excited for, but I have to catch up because I haven't seen most of them. Fast and Furious 9.
Fast 9.
May
yes.
22nd.
I mean, if you're interested in catching up, we can catch up.
This is the one with the Rock and Jason Statham, right?
We have not seen that one. That was...
Oh, is that the one that was out before?
Yeah. That was
Is
Shaw,
this one the
Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh.
This
Hobbs
is just
and
the
Shaw.
next Fast movie.
Is this the one that has the sister?
It has all of them.
Oh, she already... Oh, yeah, she was in the last one. Never mind. I don't know. Wonder Woman, 1984, June 5th.
That's going to be our summer blockbuster.
Yep.
I'm okay with that.
In the Heights. I'm excited for that. June 26th.
I'm surprised you didn't say anything about underwater. I thought you'd be psyched for aliens underwater.
No. Kristen Stewart. I'm not excited
underwater
for
aliens.
anything with her.
Get out of here,
Except
dude.
I was excited for Charlie's Angels, and that made no money, and I haven't seen it yet. So
It's probably out of theaters at this point.
well.
So we'll have to. But here's the thing: if you're interested, and I'm interested, sight unseen, I'm willing to buy it. I'm willing to give it support. I'm willing to give it support. Sight unseen.
Is Afterlife one word?
Yes.
Yes. So Ghostbusters Afterlife, July 10th.
That's
going to be a summer blockbuster.
That's
hopefully.
tight. That's tight to that Wonder Woman.
It's going to be something that kids can see because they're out of school too.
Yeah, but so is Wonder Woman, and that's tight. That's going to be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia there, and I think a lot of people kind of on the heels of that last one.
August 21st, Bill and Ted Face the Music.
I don't even know how to feel about that.
Yeah.
I loved those movies.
Me too.
But I don't know that I still love those movies.
Right.
It's been so long since I watched them.
Like, I know that young, less discerning me love those
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, 100%.
I feel like they've held up, though.
And it's funny because I watched Holy Grail, and I feel like that was a younger, less discerning me, and I did not like it, but I feel like I would now.
I don't know. The Witches, October 16th.
What is The Witches?
Is The Witches is it a remake of...
If it's The Witches of Eastwick?
Yeah, isn't it? No. The Witches with Angelica Houston.
That looks...
Did you never see that?
No.
That was one of my favorite movies.
No.
The witches turn the kids into mice, and then they're trying to like eat them.
Trailer.
Or no, or they were trying to eat the kids. Oh man, it's been so long since I even saw it.
It's not even showing. I don't know why. Oh, I definitely never saw this.
Oh, it's so good.
It doesn't look good.
It's good.
Tell you what, it doesn't look good.
We're going to watch it.
It looks terrible.
We're going to watch it.
It looks horrendous.
It's Robert Zemeckis. It was good.
It looks horrendous.
Based on
Roald Dahl's 1983 classic book of The Witches. No, I thought it was The Witches of Eastwick, which was a great movie.
No, yeah, that is I like that movie.
I want Disney to remake that. Let's get The Witches of Eastwick, The Reawakening or some shit.
Huh. So that's exciting.
Oh no, I'm making a mess of myself on the internet.
Okay, yeah, we need to switch to Godzilla because that's coming. Anything else? There's got to be something around like Christmas. Oh, what's this? Oh, coming to America, December 18th.
Oh my God, dude. Here's the thing. We have to watch Trading Places first.
Yeah.
Because I cannot believe I've never made you watch Trading Places.
December 23rd, Cruella.
Who fucking cares?
I care.
Why?
I'm excited.
I had no...
You asked me what I'm excited for.
Sure. But I mean, like...
so I think that's everything.
Even Maleficent was kind of like, meh. I'm just not that deep into the Disney thing. There are specific franchises from Disney that I'm into. Like, I really did enjoy a Mulan. Great movie. I really enjoyed Aladdin, all three Aladdin movies and the live action, great.
Right.
I did enjoy Lion King, live action, not so much. I'm really trying to think, besides like Pixar, like I'm trying to think like another Disney franchise that I was really into. Nothing. Like,
right.
I never saw Dumbo, but I've seen pieces of it. Never struck me. I've never seen Bambi, but we have it in Croatian, and I really want to watch it in Croatian.
I watched it in Croatian. It's adorable.
But... Disney stuff, Cinderella, I guess.
Yeah.
What's funny to me is I like the original version of those stories better. I really want to watch that movie, Hans Christian Andersen, again. That was such a great movie from back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's like the telling of some of those stories to kids. Like, I dug that. Plus,
Hansel and Gretel's coming out.
which is not a sequel to the...
No, but it's like fairy tales, children's stories.
Right, but I think it's horror.
Yeah, that's supposed to be.
Yeah. I'm not... that's like... No one should want to see the stories as told by the Grimm brothers.
Right.
Because those are terrifying fucking stories. There's a lot of death and violence and pain and misery.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
just like life.
And I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, somebody pointed out, and I feel like this is accurate because the Germans are fucking weird. I think Hansel and Gretel is about them sneaking off into the forest to fuck.
Oh, creepy.
Somebody pointed that out, and I was like, God. Because, like,
they're siblings.
Right, but, like, if you read it, the way it's written, talking about, like, broke her crown, and I was just like, fuck.
Ew.
Fuck.
All right. Well, that's all I got.
Yeah, we're going to end it on incest, I guess. That's fucking weird. That's going to be it for this one. Fucking weird one. We started with X-Men and ended with...
incest.
Yeah, fucking... That's...
Which is what I was saying about X-Men.
Oh, because Raven was like his sister.
All right, bring it back.
Yeah, it was related. It's related. That's going to be it for this one. Make sure you like, subscribe. I'll leave links for her in the description of the video. And yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.